we're now joined by Dean Wingrin, a defense analyst at defenceWeb. Thank you so much for your time. Well, of course, this accident has sent shockwaves not only for the Defence Force, but also just, for South Africans at large. Just talk to us, Dean, about, what you think could have been the cause of this accident, and do you think it could have been prevented in any way?
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me. And if initially I can just say condolences to the family and colleagues of the deceased. Yes, Wednesday was quite a tragic day for the Navy and for South Africa in general as well. And what was happening was that the submarine was undertaking a replenishment exercise known as a VERTREP, or vertical replenishment, which is when a helicopter comes and they would hoist crew from the deck of the submarine up to the helicopter, vice versa down to the deck, and even transfer cargo between the two as required. Now, this is something that is trained on a regular basis, and it's nothing new for the Defence Force, for the Navy, for the Air Force, and the helicopter and submarine crews. And there's certain operational standard operating procedures and safety guidelines that they adhere to in order to do this. The submarine crew is also attached to a safety wire that is stretched from the main sail of the submarine to the front, and whoever is on deck is attached by a safety wire to the safety line, as well as each crew member wears a personal inflatable life jacket. And of course, the helicopter also has a safety diver on board. This exercise was undertaken right opposite a major NSRI base at Kommetjie. And there was also another naval vessel, an inshore patrol vessel. So I believe the relevant safety precautions were undertaken. But the seas were very rough that day. The Cape had been battered by storms. There was a heavy sea swell, strong winds. And I understand that the exercise director had actually cancelled the exercise as soon as the environmental conditions exceeded those safety limits. And it was just shortly after the exercise was cancelled that this, what you call a freak wave, hit the crew, and unfortunately they were swept overboard. And even with the safety wires attached, it meant that those members were then could be battered against the side of the submarine and injured in that way before they could be retrieved.
Now, of course, I was going to say that, that this accident actually came as we were also reporting, those high winds and rough seas. Of course, we were speaking to the South African Weather Services as well as other entities who were giving warnings, of the damaging waves in Cape Town. So just in light of, these warnings, let's talk then about this vessel, the SAS Manthatisi. Apparently, it's one of 3 German-built types, a heroine-class submarine. What else can you tell us about the submarine, and what probably could have led officials to think that it could withstand, those weather conditions?
Yes, well, the South African Navy acquired 3 of these heroine-class submarines. They're of German build. They're acquired under the Strategic Defence Acquisition Package. Almost 15 years ago. I think the Manthatisi was actually commissioned into the Navy in 2008. So although they are modern submarines, they're not exactly new by naval standards because they have been in service for quite a few years. And operating in such harsh environments as the sea around the Cape of Storms, didn't get its name for nothing. These vessels are required to undergo constant maintenance. It needs to undergo scheduled upgrades and a midlife update. And the Navy has experienced a severely declining budget, as the SANDF in general has. And this has impacted on the ability of the Navy to maintain its vessels and keep them all seaworthy. But I'm sure those that have gone out, Manthatisi did undergo a limited maintenance schedule a few years ago. It was due to go another one last year, but it has been deferred for funding reasons. But I believe that the Navy is a professional Navy. It operates professionally. It keeps its crews and staff well skilled and maintained. And I do believe the vessel would have been seaworthy for the type of exercise that it was scheduled to undergo.
Let's just talk about the officers, if we can, Dean. They've already been identified, of course. The 48-year-old Master Warrant Officer William Malisela Matipa, as well as Warrant Officer Class 1 Mokwepa Mojele, and of course 32-year-old Lieutenant Commander Gillian Hector. What roles did they assume, in the Navy, if you do perhaps know? And perhaps just tell us about what this loss, has impacted and how it has impacted the Navy.
Yes, well, the loss of these Navy members will have quite a dramatic impact, both operationally and psychologically, on all members of the Navy. Yes, Lieutenant Commander Hector, she was the executive officer of the vessel, and that's a very, very senior position. She basically has overall responsibility for the day-to-day running and functioning of the submarine, and operates just under the captain of the submarine, which is Commander Pokana. And so the other two deceased, these are the coxswains. These are actually involved in the steering of the vessel, and that there was an officer under training, a coxswain under training, just shows you that because the Navy has limited budget for going out to sea, they use every opportunity that they can get to train and get sufficient training for their crews and maintaining proficiencies. And even those that were injured, including the commander, Pokana, the captain of the submarine, I think, and not taking away from the other three crew members who are hospitalized, they all, even those that are surviving, that weren't directly involved going into the sea, they're all suffering trauma, psychological trauma from this. Air Force crew members as well, they seeing your fellow comrades in trouble like this will have quite an effect on them. And I understand they are going counselling, and I think that's a very wise decision, and it will take time for them to work their way through this. And I believe this will have an impact on the Navy going forward, and it will stay with them for years to come.